Okay, it is now 5:31. Today is Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. This is a meeting of the Ways and Means Committee of the Greenfield City Council. Before we begin this meeting, I need to ask the following. This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee. If any other person present is doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Is there anybody out there that is recording? Okay, thank you. Councillor Bottomley, can you do a roll call for us?
Yes. Councillor Forgy.
Here.
Councillor Jarvis. Councillor DeSorger.
Here.
Councillor Mayo. Did I hear you? I think you're muted.
I can hear him.
Here.
Oh, there you are. For some reason, I couldn't hear it. Yes, and I'm Councillor Bottomley. I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. So good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. This has all the appearance of being a very short meeting this evening. We have very little on the agenda that we have to get to, so let's just start that out right away. I need an approval of the minutes of April 27th, April 28th, April 29th, and May 5th, 2021. And I hope that everybody's had an opportunity to read through them, because those were the minutes that were from all the financial pieces of the budget when we were interviewing different department heads. So if everybody is okay with those minutes, it was a while ago, it was May. If everybody was okay with those minutes, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved, DeSorger.
I need a second, please. Do I have a second? Doug, are you seconding?
Can't hear
Okay,
it.
I can't hear you, but I can see your lips go yes. Okay. Okay, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes stand approved. Next agenda item is public hearing, which we do not have. We are going to go right into motions. We have a motion that we need to look at, and that is to repurpose. So let's go right to the motion, which you will find in your packet.
Okay.
After the minutes. And I will read that motion. Order number fiscal year 21-102. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner in accordance with Mass General Law, moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council approves repurposing in the amount of $20,431.92 for previous authorization fiscal year 19-122 for repair of Green River Road paving Mackin Avenue. Majority vote required. Is there a second?
Second, Mayo.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to discussion. We do have our DPW superintendent here this evening, Marlo Warner, and if anybody has got any questions, please, I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions we may have. Doug, go ahead.
Just one question. What is it says it's repurposed? What was the original purpose?
Thank you, Councillor Mayo. So the original appropriation was $175,000 to resurface Green River Road, I believe 2 capital processes ago. The project is finally closed out and we had this amount of money left over. As we put our paving program together this year, which by the way, they finally approved the money a day and a half ago, so we can move ahead with this year's paving program as far as the state's concerned. So I'm repurposing this. I always take a look at what I have for funding left in appropriations and how we can combine things to use our monies that you folks have given us the most sensibly as we can. And put them towards projects that are the same or similar. So Mac and Ave fit the bill to be overlaid. So it's also a road resurface. It's one of those roads that meets the money requirement. I think we're going to have to take about $2,000 approximately dollars out of our Chapter 90 to do the whole project there. But if we wait on that road under our evaluation process, that road in the next year or two will cost us probably twice as much if we have to mill the road and overlay or do another treatment to it. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I was trying to get all the information out there.
That's good. Long-winded is fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor DeSorger, did I see your hand up?
You did. Was the original appropriation Chapter 90 funding?
No, it was actually $175,000 capital appropriated, well, through the capital process and appropriated through City Council.
Okay. So in that case, it actually didn't, it didn't have to go to the road then if it wasn't Chapter 90. Is that correct?
Well, it was specifically written for resurfacing of Green River Road, and that's why I'm using it, what's left as a resurfacing of another road. Another piece of information is our Chapter 90 has been frozen for 11 years. So the amount of money we get in that grant every year has not increased in 11 years. And we all know what has happened with costs and so on and so forth in 11 years. So you'll see the last 3 years, I've actually requested extra, I call it highway fund money, but I try and be specific to the City Council on a specific road to be as transparent as possible. So in other words, I don't just use it somewhere else. I always come forward where we need it. And Green River Road was a place, and now Mac and Ave is a place to complete our paving program. The other piece of it is we are paving Coleraine Street after the sidewalks have just been done under another grant. So the mobility of the equipment, the paving company moving the equipment around the city, it's going to save us a move of that equipment, which is very costly, believe it or not, in the paving program. And they jump from one section of the city to the other. They can simply walk that equipment from the rotary over to Mac and Ave. And like I said, it was very close in the funding to where we can hit that perfectly and not pay extra funds.
Well, I liked the part where it saved in another year, it'd be twice as much. So that was a real selling. That was a truly a selling point to anybody on Ways and Means, I think. I just, so I probably will be voting in favor of that, but I'll have one other question before you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may just explain our paving program a little bit, and I'm not trying to make the meeting longer than it needs to be. I know we have a short agenda, but we have a very robust paving management program that we invested in 7 years ago. It's an overall rating of the roads. We constantly update it when we pave our roads every year. And each road is given an index in what it needs, whether it needs a complete reconstruction, it needs routine maintenance or preventative maintenance. We want to stay as much as we can into preventative and routine maintenance, because when we get into reconstruction, such as milling and overlay, full depth reclamation, it gets extremely expensive. Turner's Falls Road, I'll give you an example, is on this year's list. We're going to be able to mill and overlay it. Whereas if we wait another year or two, that road potentially full depth reclamation would cost us our whole year of paving program money through Chapter 90. Whereas we're going to be somewhere in the vicinity of about a quarter of it this year, which we know Turner's Falls Road is a long road. So I just wanted to give a little background on our program, and I'd be more than happy to go more in depth with anyone on that. I could go on, this is DPW, I could go on for hours just on the paving program, because I love talking about it. There is a science to it. We don't just pick roads, so on and so forth. So there's an actual method to our madness, believe it or not.
I absolutely believe that, and I drove out and looked at it. And if it's going to save twice as much as in another year, that's so be it. There you go.
So are there any more questions or comments? Anybody wish to ask our director anything else about the project? About the project, where we've got a motion open on the table right now. So if there is no further discussion about this motion, I would like to take a vote. All in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hands and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion receives a unanimous positive recommendation out to council for tomorrow evening.
Right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You're
You're very welcome. That is really the bulk of our business this evening. I just wanted to get back to the agenda here. When you're working with these files, it's a little crazy. We always have on our agenda a discussion about split tax rate, but if anybody wants to address that right now, they can do so, but I am looking to move us on to other business. And as a result of moving on to other business, I'd like to just take a couple of moments to say what I need to say in regard to our next meeting. The agenda items I tried to get on the agenda for July. There were specific questions that I sent out to the mayor in regard to some of the things that are going to happen to us in the future. I had missed the deadline by 5 days. You have to have submitted your questions by a certain period of time to the clerk. And because I missed that deadline, the questions will now be on the August agenda. I think that the August agenda is going to be a full one, and it's going to be a lively discussion. And I wanted to talk to people on the committee this evening about some of the paperwork that they might be seeing coming to them. Some of the questions I asked were basically for updates on the ARPA money, which is money that we will be receiving from the feds through the state. There's also a CARES Act. There's also FEMA and MEMA money. Those last three that I mentioned are reimbursables. The ARPA money is going to be, it's going to come to the city and is going to need distribution. And I think that it would be very important for us to do a little research ahead of time so that we familiarize ourselves with the act, also with the purposes that the money can be used for. And I think it would be great for us to enter into a discussion with the mayor and with Liz about certain uses of the money. And that is what I think we need to focus on, in addition to, it's already in the questions for the next agenda for the August meeting, but I think we need to focus on educating ourselves. I also want to remind people that at this point, there was a Division of Local Services, DLS. There's a cherry sheet piece that has come out as a final at this point. And I would encourage everybody to go ahead. Tammy sent that to us. Go online, take a look at the cherry sheet items, the things that we have received. What was proposed initially has turned out to be a bit more for us after the state has done their magic. So I want people to be familiar with that as well. The other thing is that there's a couple of agenda items on tomorrow evening. of tomorrow evening's agenda as well. And again, please do research. I cannot urge you to do your research, because we are going to get into some of the more interesting pieces of land sale and land purchase. And I think it's very important that we understand all of those things that are going to happen. Additionally, I've asked the mayor and our finance director to make available updates on the spending for our temporary fire station project and the library project, where we are at that particular time, and how that's going to impact borrowing and the borrowing cycle. This is a conversation we'll have to have with Director Gilman. So those are the updates from me, but I do need to know if there are people now that have any questions at all that they wish to discuss in this open part of our meeting, that perhaps the people, Liz is here and Marlo is here, if you have any specific concerns, things you'd like to talk about, I would encourage you to, let's hear it so it's out on the table, and we can be more prepared as we enter into our council meeting tonight and our August meeting as well. So if anybody's got any questions right now, we have a captive audience, Liz. and so if you've got anything you've been thinking about or would like to know about, by all means, ask the question now.
Yeah.
Councilor Bottomley, go right ahead.
These are really general, so I don't know if you can answer these yet, but I was curious, do you know how much ARPA funds the city is going to get? Is that number firmed up?
We've received notification. The problem is we've only received about a third of it that we were supposed to receive. So now I'm beginning to wonder, what exactly are we going to get? I've been in touch with the state and the Treasury, trying to find out what's going on. Basically, it's the funds. We received two portions under ARPA. One is our direct allocation, which we have received. That is about $900,000, I'm rounding. And then we receive a distribution for abolished county. Franklin County is abolished, and that's about 1.6 million. That hasn't shown up, and we're trying to track that down. This is a grant. I just want to clarify, it does not need appropriation, as all other grants. We are working on, we received half of it this year. Well, we're supposed to already receive it. Half now, May, June. We're still waiting. And then in another year, we receive the other half. It's a grand total over the couple years of over 5 million if we receive it all.
Okay.
Okay. I'll send you a detailed chart on that. I was
Sure.
planning on doing that with the information that Councilor Forgy, the questions Councilor Forgy had asked. But it's extensive after just having gone and still going through CARES and FEMA. There's a lot to it.
So if I could for just 1 minute,
Sure.
clarification, Liz. So CARES and FEMA, those are reimbursable pieces. Is that correct?
No, FEMA
Okay.
is. FEMA is. CARES, you could request upfront, which we did.
And have we received money from CARES at this point?
Yes, we have. But and again, CARES and FEMA are very, very specific as to what you may use them on.
Okay, and how much have we received from CARES?
I'm going to round.
Sure,
if you
that's
don't
fine.
mind.
I'm not taking it verbatim,
I
really.
believe it's like 1.336 million. And I have a chart on this too,
Okay,
that I will send.
okay, that's fine.
And CARES, again, it is strictly COVID related, both CARES and FEMA. And on CARES, I get I get approval before we actually spend it on something. Like, I want to make sure it's gonna be okay.
Okay.
So I asked the question of whether this is eligible under CARES or not, and I get an answer. So it's been a tedious, how long has it been, Marlo? 14 months?
17 months, 16, 17.
Yeah.
On the CARES, I'm trying to understand. Well, I guess you said something that that I'm a little surprised at, and that is that we're going to get the ARPA money, but ARPA money is not subject to appropriation.
Correct. It is a grant, just like FEMA. It's recovery funds.
So that the decision making is all the mayor's. Is that correct?
Yep. I would say, like, well, I would say I compare it to like CDBG.
Well,
and it's not like
mayor's.
there aren't conversations and discussions that go on.
Okay.
There's a whole committee that MJ puts together for that.
Who is?
Director Adams.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, and when you talk about the CARES and you're asking if it's okay, who exactly are you asking? Is it
the Department of Revenue?
It's
they
of Revenue.
They are custodians. We are a sub-recipient of CARES.
Got it.
So, yes, I just cover our butts every.
Okay.
I ask to make sure everything is okay.
We like to think we are too. That's what we like to think. But okay. Now, I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in there in the second and I didn't let other people speak, but are there other people that have questions or comments at this point? For Liz? John, go ahead.
Well, I do have a question on, would it be asking too much, since apparently this isn't appropriated, for the Ways and Means to at least get a report every month at our meeting on exactly what was spent?
Sure. Quite honestly, because there's so many pieces to it. And first of all, we want to make sure we're actually going to get this first half because we're missing 1.6 million. So, once the goal is to have it on particular, I'm going to call it project items, whatever you want to call it, So once that's decided, we can set up budgets for all of it, and then we can give you reports.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I do. So,
Jenny, go ahead.
So I just want to go back to what we had from before. So you said FEMA was 1.366 million?
No, that was CARES.
Okay, CARES was 1.3. Okay. So I did, and FEMA, you didn't give us a dollar figure on that?
That is totally 100% reimbursable.
Okay.
We have yet to receive the funds. We're getting close.
Okay.
It's quite the process. But we're in the neighborhood of having submitted over the past 14 months over $400,000 worth of claims. I'm going to call it claims because it's easier to understand that way.
Is. I do understand.
And we're hoping to get that money pretty soon.
Okay.
Is it 100% reimbursement, Liz?
It is now. It usually is 75. Well, it started out. Let me tell you what a nightmare. Well, it hasn't been easy. Let me put it this way.
Okay.
It started out at 75-25. And then within the past 3 or 4 months, it was switched to 100%.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they change what qualifies and doesn't qualify continually through this whole process. So it's not easy.
Okay.
So I just want to let you know up front, there's a lot to this. And I'm not trying to minimize it or, scare you off or anything like that. But, if anyone's looked at the ARP, the initial ruling is 151 pages. And then the revenue calculation is another 60 pages. So it's not easy, folks.
No.
Right. Right. We understand that. That's why we're asking all these questions,
Yeah,
because
no, it's fine.
we want to understand more. Yeah.
Yeah, no. It is complicated. It has been extremely time consuming. And I just want to throw out, just so you're aware, we actually have been down a person in my office for 6 weeks. This is the start of the 6th week, so it's intense in here.
I'm sorry to hear that. I am sorry to hear that.
And I don't know what's going to happen, so hope for the best,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have some more, but I will hold back in anticipation that others would like to speak. So Ginny, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
So I want to go back to something that I remember when we were in the middle of this, we budgeted, or we said that we were going to put $300,000 aside for nursing services. That was to get the vaccines out. And I wondered I remember voting on that.
No. Yeah. I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify it.
I don't have that in front of me. It was in my mind, and I couldn't find it this afternoon. It was a just in case. And I wanted to know what happened with that, as I volunteered, and most of the people there actually might be celebrating tonight. Most of the people may be volunteering. I mean, I don't know that we used all that. I wanted to know what the breakdown of that was and how that works out.
So what that actually was a revolving fund authorization, and you were increasing the authorization to spend up to 300,000. Like you vote on all those annual authorizations. We just increased it. We increased it at the time because it wasn't clear if FEMA was going to make us apply for insurance reimbursement on it. As it turned out, they did not. So in reality, we really didn't need to tap into that because it's been covered by FEMA, the 100% now at this point. And we've done some joint things with FERCOG as well.
Very good. I remember now, we authorized, the normal authorization was like 10,000, and we said, I remember the number. So, Director Gilman, I actually read through the 151 pages, but not your 60 pages.
Of course you did.
And I know I'm sure, because I thought, so although it's not subject to appropriation, they do encourage engagement from constituents and communities to see how in the development of plans. So on that note, and there were several, they had 4 main subcategories and all of these other things, and mostly there were many, many things that could be allowed. I wanted to put this to Director Warner and see, because I noticed there were infrastructure things. What were the things, did you come up with any things infrastructure wise, that knowing that extra funding was coming? I know I always have thoughts, but I always let you know how I feel about, sidewalks, etc. But what were your thoughts for infrastructure? Did you put anything forward or anything?
It's been a little while, but if my memory serves me right, I think all department heads were asked by the mayor to submit projects or so on and so forth. And that was all before we received the 150-page document. It was kind of unclear at the time, but and if my memory serves me right, one of my biggest at the top of the list was working on our I believe I had submitted to the mayor. So, and I can't remember, there may have been a couple of other projects, less significant, is regard to I. As we know, I just keeps haunting us. We're improving. But that, to me, that was the big item. Now that we've gotten through all the evaluations and we know where to look and what to repair going forward.
Okay.
So maybe you ultimately would like to ask the mayor what everybody submitted or something like that, you know, to get an idea of what the needs were that were put forward.
That's a great idea.
That's good. Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's a good idea. And I knew that it was going to be a significant amount. And on the CARES, that was, although that was not subject to appropriation either, but will we ever see what came in and went out or at any
Sure.
point? Okay. All right.
Sure.
Very good.
We're still able to spend that, by the way, till September, I believe, the end of September, or September 20th, something like that. And believe it or not, things still do come in, and there still is a little bit of contact tracing going on, which was eligible. So the one thing about CARES, I'll just put out, and FEMA, is that what you spent it on also had to be completely unbudgeted.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, I couldn't use it to just pay my nurse the regular salary that the nurse received anyway. So a lot of the things, just to give you an idea, was like contact tracing, the vaccine clinics, gosh,
And
a lot of the ambulance, the fire overtime for ambulance calls, a lot of that.
Director Gilman, I remember the chief, I had tears in my eyes the night, it was one of the budget hearings, and he was saying they never would have been able to continue and do all the things that needed to be done if it weren't for you. So that part actually, that was the coming and going.
I was expecting that.
No, I remember that. I remember that night. It was like they couldn't have done everything because he knew that you were in the background doing the finance part.
Oh, sorry.
No sense Monday morning quarterbacking that. I thought I heard from him you did a fabulous job. And he was like, we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a lot to digest. You were continually being bombarded with guidelines and bulletins and IGRs and on how to handle it all, and webinars out the wazoo, as Marlo can tell you. So it hasn't been easy, but also I've had, both chiefs and Marlo have been through this rodeo before. So that was also extremely helpful. They knew what they were doing. Let's put it that way. And that was really helpful. But trying to figure out how we could best utilize it and cover what we can was continual over these 14 months. At some point I have to print out all my emails so I have it for the auditors.
Sure. Agreed. Agreed. Are there more questions for Liz?
Yes, I do. So this is different though. This ARPA is different. This is going to be a one-time thing in 2 payments. And
they're all one time. But
pardon me?
They're all one time, really.
Well, but yes, and it was really to kind of equalize things within the community. So although it's not subject to appropriation, I think that, I certainly think that input is good. And also knowing, have we spent any of our ARPA funding so far?
No.
Okay. So
we really need to know for certain that we're getting that other piece.
Mm-hmm.
So and that kind of is how you develop the plan of what you want to do. You got to know what you have to work with. I'm hoping they come through, but honestly, I have been in contact with the state directly at least 3 times saying, do you have it and you're just not giving it to us? But they claim they don't have it. They say it's still at the Treasury. I've contacted the Treasury and gotten 0 response several times. And it's just frustrating. Because everyone wants to go forward. And as I said to the state, I said, this is like, if you wanted to do construction, this is construction season right now. So it hasn't been easy. But it is, this is all one-time money. And why ARPA, you know how I look at ARPA, I say CARES and FEMA are very restricted. They were very restricted. ARP has restricted buckets. It still can't be for anything, but it has buckets you can choose from. That's how I look at it.
Yes, and that's why I asked Director Marlowe, because I thought I saw one of them was infrastructure and broadband,
Yep.
and then there was public
Right.
health, and
Yep.
certainly. But do you think that you and the mayor would be interested in our input too, or not? Or did you in our input?
Yeah, I do know. I think she had set up, like Marlo initially said, she did reach out to all department heads and said, tell me what you need, and or what your thoughts are on any of this. But that it would be, it is ultimately her decision. I would say I'm particularly always open to thoughts, but again, I know, for example, you remember the ARPA funds from 2010 timeframe? I'm a big supporter of things that save you money, like solar, for example. You spend this one-time money, but guess what? You reap the benefit forever, in reduced expenses. But it all, it's all on the needs. And you also have to take into account, are there other grants out there more likely for certain projects, and there still are even more ARP funds that are different application process. There's a lot out there. So you also have to take that into consideration. Do I have that opportunity? Do I want to spend it on something where there isn't much opportunity? It's just thoughts.
It's
That's the way my brain thinks anyway.
Councilor Mayo, go ahead.
It sounds to me like we have a variety of things that we could use this money for, different buckets, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they, for instance, one of them is responding to essential workers during COVID by providing premium pay. Has that been talked about?
It has been talked about, but you have to know that that's very specific to, let's just say, fire, police.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure
that's not contract related. That's just extra money related to this money. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Director Werner.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quick on the buckets we're talking about. I read most of the 150 pages, and it's a little difficult to follow when you talk about infrastructure in this 150 pages. Some of it was very clear that you can only use it on new infrastructure, and other pieces you weren't allowed to use it for repair of infrastructure. So I wanted to point that out to Jenny, you know, because there's nobody in the world that thinks about our sidewalks more than me, in the situation we are in with them. So, but in those buckets, it can be very convoluted. You have to really kind of drill down and get information on that, because a lot of it is new infrastructure, and other pieces you can do repair of infrastructure, but it's difficult to pull out of the weeds which is which. So, yeah, so I hope that helps.
It does. It does.
Director Gilman, do you think that finishing the build out of GSET would count?
It does. We have been heavily looking into that because that was one we had to do a lot of research on.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had to define underserved, because that was a big word used throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly means underserved? And so, but then they got more into specific up and down speeds, bandwidth. And they talked about you needed to be able to do a certain, if you use the ARP funds, you needed to achieve a certain level. So a lot of Verizon is not in a lot of areas in Greenfield, and Comcast can't do it. So it cannot, well, Comcast can only go to a certain level on the speed.
Mhm.
So I think we're looking, and affordability was also a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really, so what you have to do, and I have checked with our auditor on this, and I have such a strong audit background, and I've worked with grants all over the place. I said right up front that no matter what we do, we have to write a project scope so that it ties into this 151 pages very cleanly. This is how we're spending it, and this is how it relates to ARP. So we've been working on GSET already.
That's great.
Yeah. And
Good.
quite honestly, that makes the most sense because it helps get it up to speed and not where it's creating any deficits for the general fund. So that kind of makes sense. One-time money that's not ours, basically, and saves us money, basically, the way I look at it.
That's what I thought, because every year we asked, we always put out to the capital projects, whatever it is that we're asked for that. And we know we're going to keep doing that. So that was one thing that I was hoping. And I'm just going to say this because if you were interested in what I was thinking, and I don't really know, but the Portland Loos, I thought that Marlo might even be glad about that. The Portland Loos, it's I'll send you an image of it. We all have.
Thank you.
The Portland
Loos,
is
those portable. I know.
It ties into the sewer. It's handicap accessible. It's graffiti proof, and you'd be putting that in. Well, I think of the problem that we had just recently with, there's no water in the parking garage, but you could have one, like say we got 3 or 4 and put them in different places. They're expensive, but they tie in there, and I thought no one's going to knock them over. It's like a outdoor.
Can't you kind of see into them too? From what I understand.
You can get a contract where you actually have somebody to clean them or something too, but it just, I'm listening to all the problems with that, and I thought that also takes care of a population that it looked like to me, just from me reading this, and I certainly know that you know all the ins and outs of this more. I was just volunteering for things, okay? But I do have the heart of a nurse and the heart of somebody who cares about public health. And You know, I don't think it's a good idea for people. I know it isn't a good idea. It's not healthy for people to be using the outdoors as their bathroom. But for some people that live there, that's the public. It's a public health, and there was a big emphasis on this with public health. So, for what it's worth, those were two things that I thought they're taking care of people who needed some help, and anybody with a health problem that was downtown. And then also there's a lot of underserved population with the GSET. We certainly had people coming before us where they could get a whole bunch of people, like up on Briar Way, et cetera. So that was just
Also down on Power Square and Power Street, people were complaining that they had GSET, but their power, the strength of their broadband was so weak that they couldn't use it for Zoom meetings or WebEx or anything of that nature. That it was so weak that they could get email, but that no video.
There can't have been fiber run out there. They must have been doing it some other way, connecting to GSET, or they don't have GSET.
Fiber? Did they have the fibers laid yet? Oh, sorry.
I believe they do have GSET, or one person I spoke to on Power Court says that she does have GSET.
Really?
And that it has very just low power band.
I'm gonna try for just a moment to pull us back into finance pieces, and I wanted to ask. You already mentioned that you're down a staff person, but I wanted to ask how the fiscal year closing was going. And I know it's very early in the game. And if perhaps you would be able to share with us an estimate of when you thought the books would be closed and we'd be able to see revenue figures, final revenue and expenditure figures.
I can send you a preliminary revenue. Expenditures it's probably going to be another couple of weeks.
Right.
Okay.
I get it. Yeah.
But believe it or not, I actually had here for preliminary for you, just to talk about. We made our local receipt budget by 60,000, but we made it.
Wow. Wow.
But if you all remember, we all knew 21 was going to be our worst year.
Right.
And so the only thing I would say to you is that normally you like to see your local receipts at least 300,000 or 400,000, maybe 5 higher to contribute to free cash.
Right.
So what that tells us is that the amount of free cash we probably will have will be what the departments turn back, and we're still working on that. We still have another warrant to do for FY21. But just so you know, my biggest winners, because Marlo's here, I have to mention it. I could say winners, the ones that came in over budget. The transfer station. It did well. And then principal or penalty and interest, sorry. And motor vehicle came in slightly, but usually motor vehicle is your larger one for us anyway.
Okay.
And it came over, but not over budget, but not as much as I would have liked to have seen it. But still good. It's not under. I'll take it. Then also sometimes when we auction off properties, we actually have a gain. And we had several of those. That ends up in miscellaneous income. So you'll see that as well. So I actually, for the most part, was happy that we met budget, because quite honestly, in June, I kept watching it and thinking, oh, we might not make it. So I'm really happy that we made it. And yes, we're still working on the expenditures. I do a hard close, and I already have it scheduled for August 9th in Munis, where you actually do a hard computer close.
Mm-hmm.
And that all the reports are much better after you do that. So I schedule it because we're gonna be on time and get it done. But right now it is intense. Thank God I have the staff I do have, because they're really pulling together to get us through this. And the other thing too, I just will mention, because I had worked with the state aid, and we actually I look at assessments as well, so I call it net state aid, and all our assessments went up another 50K.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are you kidding? So bottom line, from when we first did this budget, which is always based on the governor's budget,
Right.
it's actually down 78,000. But one piece of good news is that I have budgeted a deficit for an enterprise GSET that won't be quite as high as what I had. So it all will make it work. Let's put it that way. It will work. And you also don't know what else may change. Generally, I actually was pretty happy. I'll get a better feeling for the turnbacks probably in another 10 days, It'll give me a better feel for, okay, are we going to have decent free cash or not? We'll obviously have some.
Right.
But, certainly I want everyone to remember, though, that the last free cash, that was 2 years worth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was so high.
Right.
But we will have free cash. But a question, being down a person, it's a lot to get this all done.
It is.
Go into submitting the balance sheet to DOR, to submitting Schedule A, to doing the schools, our piece of the schools end of year, to setting the tax rate. This all happens. And by the way, the auditors are already on me for 21's audit. There's never a slow time in our office. That's all I can tell you.
I agree. I remember. Doug, you have a question?
Director Gilman, when did that person leave?
It was, I want to say, almost 2 weeks in June. So it was the end of the year and the start of this year, and it's been brutal.
It's true.
And the person is out. They are not, like, they're just out.
Are they? Okay. Is this in any way that money that you could use to hire through the COVID? Extra staff or
it's not related to COVID.
No.
Oh, it's not.
No,
it's not.
But it happened during that time, though.
That doesn't. It's very specific.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And I still have to, unfortunately, I would love to hire someone, but we still have to pay this individual, So
yes.
It's a little hard.
Yes.
So I don't know what's going to happen. Probably another couple of weeks, I'll know.
Yeah, I appreciate the job that you do very much. I was there, and I understand in the best of times how difficult it is to get fiscal years closed and open and get all the reports out. So I do appreciate your effort and the effort of everybody else that's working very hard to make this happen. I also have a few more questions, if I may, Liz. I just can't let go of you this evening. I was under the impression that the chief financial officer, is the repository, the Office of Chief Financial Officers, repository of contracts and records in regard to, leasing pieces, rental pieces. I've been online looking for some information on the 382 Deerfield Street. Is it 382, 328, 382? Where do those records reside? And it's also my understanding that they are public records.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, when you're a town, the statement you've made is correct. That
Okay.
it's the city accountant or chief financial officer. However, when you're a
Okay.
city, it's
Okay.
the city clerk. So we have made that transition. We both need them a lot, so we've
Right.
gotten to sharing and scanning them all,
Right.
So you're looking, tell me specifically again, I'm sorry, 382 Deerfield.
Right. I'm looking for information on any lease between.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, any lease between GMTA, FRTA. I'm looking for GMTA records is what I'm basically looking for, because the mayor wants to have us declare this property surplus and then sell it. But I know that GMTA still exists in a specific entity because of that particular piece of property that is now in question. So having the experience of bringing those two, the GMTA and the FRTA together, and brokering that with Senator Rosenberg, I know that there are agreements somewhere.
I know. And now that you bring that up, though, I do think some of it is likely in the mayor's office, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
We'll have to look, honestly.
Okay. Not that you need one more thing, but I would like to be educated before I vote.
Yeah. People just have to get to scanning more. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
It's so much easier to find things when they're scanned.
Okay. Thank you. You've been great in fielding all these questions from us this evening. Does anybody else have anything for Liz? Our captive
I want
audience.
to let her go because she's done so much, but I still have one more question. It's along that.
Okay, we have 1 more minute, Jimmy.
This is on the leases, okay? And I just thought it's okay. Obviously, you don't have them. Kathy does, or the clerk does. But on the budget book, I went through and I said that it's zeroed out. That line for income is zeroed out on rents and leases. And I thought, so where does that?
Oh,
yes, it's rents and leases, and it's zero, and it was zero last year. And I thought, I know that we get 27. Can I say the amount out loud or not? Is that wrong to say? From 401 Liberty.
Okay.
It was 27,000.
That one. I had the exact same question you had back when. So believe it or not, that rent is actually part of a pilot agreement. So you see that under pilot.
Okay.
The rent is counting toward, and that's why you don't see it there.
What line item is it under then? Under
pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. Sorry.
So it's actually not a lease situation. It's a pilot program.
Yeah. And that the only reason I know all this is because when I first came in, there was an issue with the property itself and either their assessment or their tax amount. I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
And then the problem was Kim cannot abate it unless she has a written document in her hands. And so that's how I know all this. So she finally got the written document. So maybe I can get that from Kim for you. I just thought about that. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. Are there a lot of pilots that we have? Does everybody on the committee understand what a pilot is? Payment in lieu of taxes. So if you have I'm using it as an example, if you have the hospital that really does not pay any property tax to the city. If the hospital so chooses, they can make a donation in lieu of taxes that would
Right.
help the community. And that is what is referred to as a pilot.
Or it can be a specific agreement as well, you know?
Agreed. It can be put in writing and everybody
Yep.
agrees to it. And it can go on for a number of years if that's the agreement as well. So just so everybody's clear on that.
Yeah, the thoughts too behind that is that even though you have nonprofits, they also, larger ones, put a stress on police, fire.
Right.
And so to make some contribution toward that, you know? So I'm just looking up. I don't think we have a lot of pilots. And again, this is something, that's why I said it's odd. It's done out of the mayor's office, you know, in terms of negotiating a pilot.
Right.
Or leasing out property. And that's the only reason I deferred to that as well is I thought, well, what if we're leasing something that we don't charge for? I'm not going to know about that.
Right.
And so that's why I wanted it deferred back to the mayor's office.
Okay.
I can only look in an account and tell you, oh yeah, this is what I see, you know?
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that
I have that one somewhere. I was given, I think we got a copy of that. Because I knew
401 Liberty.
Yes, I knew what that amount was, or maybe it's because I'm on the TIF committee, but we are negotiating, and actually it's out to the economic EACC, that STA, it was already voted on by council, and although things weren't quite fulfilled, they're still going to do it because they voted on it just before most of us got to be councilors, and it's going to become that, but it did say in it that it was a lease, and I thought it was zeroed. There was a zero line on the budget, but I thought I would never have known to look there because that wasn't the language that was used. But that's
right.
Fine. That's great.
Right.
I know what that is.
There's some smaller ones too. I'll have to ask them what
Not
they
today.
are. But the main one really is 401 Liberty.
Right.
Okay.
It's in there.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to wrap up. Are there any more questions, concerns, comments from Ways and Means? We have a meeting tomorrow evening, full council. We'll be bringing out a recommendation. And actually, I'll be reporting out of committee the conversations that we've had this evening, not all of them, but in general, just to let everybody know that we're working on a number of financial frontiers here. So, Liz, I want to thank you again, Director Gilmore. Gilman, sorry, Gilmore's up here on my screen too. Hi, Sheila. Anyway, I just want to thank you very much for taking time to sit with us and to answer our questions and everything else. It makes us feel more comfortable. We gain more knowledge, and we really appreciate your efforts. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I just want to mention that next month's meeting is on August 17th, and it will be at 5:30, and it will be determined whether it will be at the City Hall second floor meeting room or on WebEx tomorrow evening when the council votes. So either way, we have two venues scheduled that will be confirmed after council vote tomorrow evening. And until the next time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Mayo?
Desorga and seconded by Mayo. I'm going to take it that way. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 6:36